Good evening or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. It's Louisa Munson, and I am here with Mr. Munson. I've turned your sound up.
What's wrong with your hair?
Oh.
I mean, good evening.
Thank you. All I can say is whoever is in this seat last changed the fade settings, which was you. And I should have changed it myself anyway. Maybe this evening could have the theme of changing settings, and what do we have to change about it? What's up with your hair?
Oh, it's always like this at the moment. What, my wisps?
Yes, very nice.
It needs to be like that. You could have risen above it.
I could have
like my hair.
So this is the Barefoot broadcast. This is episode number 4, the one where we talk about.
We've quadrupled our listenership as well.
I know. The one where we talk about where Carl interviewed.
Can I have that?
Yeah, okay. I was
gonna... All right. You do the intro and I'll get the pictures up.
I was going to laugh at some of these things.
Go on, carry on. Laugh at some of these things.
A long time ago, Carl set up Vibes magazine in Sheffield. It was Sheffield's Guide to Positive Change in 1994.
Why are you doing a voice like that? Like, are you taking the proverbial a little bit?
I might be.
About my worthiness at the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong. You're taking action about things, and presumably.
I wasn't. I was just pontificating.
Were you being a
virtue signaller?
Were you being a guru explainer?
I had my own virtue signaling publication.
Okay. Very good. And yes, there is the rebellious robot and interviewer David Icke. So we'll have a look at this. Oh, it's continued on page 40. I didn't capture photos of that, but
I'd one job to do.
I did, didn't I? But I would like to welcome everyone to the show. I can see we've got quite a few people listening. We've got some comments in, but I can't actually use the mouse at the moment because Carl is buggering about with. We're sharing a mouse.
No, anyway. we're sharing a screen, aren't we?
Okay.
We've got our own mice, but we're trying to use the same 2 mice on trying to do different things.
So let us know where you're listening in. I can see we've got Colleen Murphy who's saying good night.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, nearly.
Oh yes, happy St. Patrick's Day for tomorrow. So let us know, who are you, where you're from, and have you interviewed David Icke or got anything to comment about him? So where do you want to start, Carl?
By trying to get rid of this cough that I'm fed up with now. Every time I try and do some sort of broadcasting, my persistent cough seems to be giving me difficulty. But
someone's just liked that when you said you had a persistent cough.
Thanks.
But I'm guessing
it's better than him talking all the time. Thought for the day.
Okay.
How about that?
Postpone result, solution thinking until later. Postpone result.
This is one of those that needs to be allowed to sink in.
Yeah, your cough just kind of upstaged it a bit.
Sorry.
Postpone result and solution thinking until later. It's through connection that solutions materialize. Empathy before education. I really like that. What does that mean to you?
It means to me that if I was an editor, I would get rid of until later. Postpone means till later, doesn't it? So I would just say postpone result / solution thinking, full stop. And then pause. It's through connection that solutions materialize. Empathy, and that's the key 3-part phrase, isn't it? Empathy before education. And the blooming government, they always hijack all the best things. Like 3-part slogans are very good, aren't they? Because they're simple and effective, and that is simple and effective and beautiful. Empathy before education. Education as a kind of rational, result and solution focused thing. Whereas empathy is real and now, and it deepens the context in which the education might take place. I think that's what Marshall's saying. I've seen Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of nonviolent communication, which I mentioned last night.
Yeah. I quite like how it challenges you to stop rushing, to try and solve everything just like that, because we are living in this world where, it's encouraged that we, rush, and it's all based on solutions, that there's so much emphasis and prestige put on solving things rather than the whole process of being creative about it.
Absolutely. Because it's easier to see, isn't it?
Yeah. Hey, got a blast from the past. I've got my cousin watching. Hey, Barry, how are you?
Is he a bit partial to Rupert the Bear?
Do you know what? I think he's a bit partial to the odd theory or two. So he may well be.
How do you think what do you think his relationship is to David Icke? David Icke is a real button pusher, triggerer, isn't he? Barry, what do you think of David Icke? I was once doing a BBC Radio Sheffield interview, and I was set up, and the last question was, "I understand you're a big fan of David Icke," and it was like used as a big kind of smear, rug puller at the end of this interview. It's interesting. I like him, says Barry.
Yeah.
Oh, you might enjoy what we're doing, Barry. Good to meet you.
Yeah,
you're my cousin-in-law, so nice to meet you after. Nice to kind of meet you nearly after all these years.
Yeah, I think you have actually met him once, maybe.
Really?
I don't know if you came to my mum's one time.
Oh, forgive me if that happened, Barry, but it's not like we're hanging out on a regular basis, is it? Bruv, primo.
Yeah, I agree. But so Barry is saying, I like him. It makes you think about things.
Well, this was 1994 when I did this.
Yeah.
Well,
It's like 20 years ago, 30 years
nearly
ago.
30 years ago,
Yeah.
next year. And it looks like an interview, but what actually happened was the guy who was selling ad space in my magazine said, David Icke is in a shopping centre called Meadow Hall. He'll be there if you want to interview him. I fixed it up for you. And I thought, okay, I'll do that. And I sat in the food court of Meadow Hall. Some people will know Meadow Hall in the UK. And
Pretty sure my cousin will know that. Actually.
Understand how incongruous a setting it is for a kind of, a self-proclaimed messiah and arch conspiracy theorist, the daddy of all conspiracy theories in the UK, right? And now he came, and I think he was wearing a blazer, and he had quite a sort of foppish hairdo, and still looked a bit like his snooker pundit self, and came out. And I turned on the recording device, and he just spoke at me for about an hour and a half.
Really?
Like, what was it? Did we have a giggle about it? What was it? Conspiracy splaining.
Doomsplaining.
Doomsplaining. It was it was a 90-minute doomsplain, and I couldn't get a word in edgeways, and he just opened up and just delivered this thing, which I got transcribed, and I don't have the full transcription anymore. It was done by a friend of mine. Worked at the university. Got somebody in the in the admin section, a secretary, sorry, to transcribe the audio tape. And it was pages and pages long, and this is some edited highlights that I've got for you from the magazine I published soon after in December '94, Vibes magazine, which Louisa was just taking the rise out of.
Yeah.
Yeah, my worthy virtue signaling publication. It's not all bad. It's not all
No,
bad.
it's
I meant
great.
well. I did mean well. Go through some of the subjects that are in there. Can you show how ahead of my time I was as a visionary publication editor, publisher?
Fresh organic vegetables, Unston Grange advert.
Into the microphone, please.
Oh, sorry, Master Your Life with NLP.
Yeah. What about the contents? There's veganism, homeopathy, permaculture, as I recall.
Yeah. Grief counselling, which you do a show on, funnily enough.
Do we have a Gongmeister tonight? Is Colleen going to do that for us? I wonder.
You've got a turkey-friendly Christmas dinner.
As in, if you want to stay friendly with the turkey.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's that Christmas dinner.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, it is like one of those magazines from years ago. I don't even know if they still do things like this, but
New Age listings.
Yeah, signpost to the New Age is one of your articles. But anyway,
he was my School of Philosophy teacher.
Right.
The chap who wrote that.
Wow. So should we get cracking with David Icke? Where do you want to start? What was it about David Icke you wanted to share?
I just want to share the interview because since then, in the last 30 years, he's remained a controversial figure. I don't think, had he been embarrassed on TV at that point? I don't know. But he certainly remained a controversial figure and would claim to have been proved right in these last 30 years. So I thought I'd read it and we can make our own minds up about that.
Yeah, okay.
I need to cough again.
Okay.
Just ate some dairy products. Do I need to read my own magazine from '94 to find out a dietary nutritional advisor, an intuitive nutritional advisor? Okay, so the rebellious robot, an interview with David Icke. And if I can do you've very kindly, Mrs. M, done these. Okay, so in the process of compiling the first issue of Vibes, we were offered an opportunity to meet David Icke. We discussed his controversial life and recently published book, The Robots Rebellion. I remember that coming out. I had that. Far from the media contrived image of mad messiah, we encountered a very sincere and caring man who proceeded to offer this extraordinary and shocking worldview. And in no uncertain terms, as I say, he just opened his mouth and out came all of this. And this is just a little segment from what he said. David Icke, I call it the robots' rebellion, a coup d'etat on the mind. The idea, you see, if you are seeking to take over the world, is not by tanks in the streets, but by persuading what we call public opinion and mass consciousness that certain things are desirable. Then you can get people to not only oppose what you want, but even to demand it. In the book, I quote a document which shouldn't have come to light called Silent Weapons for a Quiet War. This detailed document says the way to do it is to create problems and then offer the solutions to the problems. So take this example. The aim of this global manipulation is to get people to attempt the introduction of a one world government, one world central bank, one world currency, and one world army. Now, to do that, you have to move towards regional institutions of control like the European Community. What? Because people aren't going to accept sovereign state to world government. You have to put a few stepping stones on the way. You create a problem and highlight it to a point where public opinion says something must be done. We hear that all the time, don't we? Once public opinion has reached that terribly manipulated state, then you offer the solution, and the desperation means we'll accept the solution that was planned before the problem was here. That's the first section there. So what do you make of that, Mrs. M?
Well, we could do a whole show on that, couldn't we?
Well, we're not there yet, are we? But we could be some way into it.
Well, I want to remind you of a story that I know you've heard before, but with my ex, and my cousin.
Oh, a gong.
Okay, Barry, you won't understand. We have a little gong break, just where we just take in a deep breath and center ourselves for a moment. Hang on one sec.
Ooh, there we go.
Just felt it there.
Did you get your Kundalini?
Yeah,
Kundalini blast.
Do you know what? It does calm me because some of these subjects,
it's good, isn't it?
Some of these subjects do get me a bit.
You get
riled
triggered,
up,
don't you?
And
I need my trigger alert over on this channel as well.
I start to boil up underneath the surface. So my cousin Barry said, "This is how Hitler got to power." Very rightly so. Thank you very much for the gong break and the lovely icons as well.
Can we have another one around the 20 mark, please, Colleen? Which you probably know anyway already.
Yeah. And he's saying newbie here. You're very welcome. We're
newbies as well.
Yeah,
this is 3 episodes in.
This is the 4th.
So what is there?
Yes, hang on. Like years ago, my then boyfriend went to a networking like breakfast meeting, like sometimes people do, these network things. And he'd been socializing with some of these like top businessmen who I was always a little bit suspicious of. But he came home one day, and this is like before, when people had like brick mobile phones, but like almost the size of your face. And he said, "You never guess what's going to happen." He said, "There's this plan to have these smartphones, and you'll be able to pay for everything using your phone. You'll not wear watches anymore, probably,
and be happy about it.
Your banking, you'll be able to hold your phone up to like a
scanner.
A scanner. You'll be able to hold your phone up to like a vending machine, and things will just come out, and everything's going to be connected." And he said, "And that's just the first step."
Apart from the people.
No, but he said it's just the first step. The next step is to get chips in people's hands.
No, get out of here, you said.
No. Well, I did say that. That was like, we're probably almost talking 20 years ago now. So 10 years after you got this interview with David Icke.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, "Get out of town. No way. There's no way in the world that's going to happen." But he was talking about, chips going into hands so that there would be an automated society. But the idea being that these phones had to be so great that they had to replace pretty much everything in our lives, that they had to have TV, they had to do everything for us. They were like our personal assistants or robots. So, when he said that, I was kind of really surprised. But then, years later, I find out about what I think to be true about what actually happened on September the 11th, and lots of other things about a decade ago, 12 years ago, probably. And then all of a sudden, some of these pennies started dropping, and I started thinking, ooh, yeah, that's kind of interesting. So, yeah, so David Icke is talking about steps towards something. So, I mean, you know, a curious person might ask themselves, oh, I wonder what else we've been stepping towards.
Should I continue?
In recent times. Yeah, in fact, just before you do, Barry's saying, remember the Filofax. That's almost a step before the mobile phone, isn't it?
I knew they were wrong. Barry, you should have voiced your concerns more loudly at the time. Okay, so what is the Filofax wielding Illuminati's motivation? Icke continues, well, their motivation is power, lust for power. The Rothschild and Rockefeller empires in America are string pulling the world like crazy. There are people above them who are string pulling the string pullers. It's like a pyramid. At the top of the pyramid, you've got those who know the whole agenda, the direction it's going, the desired motivation. With every level you come down, you're hitting people who, not literally, who know less and less about the real agenda. So there's lots of people, the vast majority, who are contributing daily in their lives to bringing about this centralized global tyranny called the New World Order. The thing is to understand about this global conspiracy is that it doesn't have a party line. It's neither fascist nor communist, nor liberal Democrat. It uses any vehicle and every vehicle
add that in
to manipulate. No.
Okay.
That's what he said. Or okay, let me. I recorded him saying this, and this is a transcription of it. Okay, it sets up phony wars all across society, like bosses versus unions. We've got that. Labour versus Conservative, got that. Republican versus Democrat, and everyone's fighting each other. I think there's a great danger that the New Age movement could become just another form of mind control, belief system. All I'm saying is that people need to be encouraged to think for themselves. Okay. So is that your message, to get people to think? I don't remember saying this much to him. Actually, think for yourself, says Icke. And then I say, are there other suggestions you'd make to people who are getting a sniff of this conspiracy and what they can do about it? First of all, get informed, says David Icke. First of all, realize that anything that will move us towards centralization of power is part of the New World Order, and it's to be resisted. While we continue to vote in this phony democracy, we are giving it credence. If you live in an open tyranny with an obvious dictator, then you know where you stand, and the human desire for freedom would eventually act. But it's much more subtle in the phony democracies because we are persuaded we have freedom. I don't think it's for me to tell anyone what they should do. I think if we are going to encourage people to think for themselves, then we should present situations to them and say, what do you think we should do? Getting the game plan out is very important, because your whole perspective of the news and what politicians, I'll read the next bit.
Can you stop after that?
Say takes on a totally different light once you know what's going on.
Fascinating.
Yes.
I think we should revisit this a few times over the next month or so.
You do. Are you glad I suggested this?
Yeah, I am. Because you know what I like to talk about. But I think that's quite.
Oh, no, Barry, don't say that.
No. I mean, he's right. I mean,
oh, no, I'm joking.
You know, the current model of the current model of medical systems around the world and education is all fueled and funded in the same way, and has been for decades. I've got some clients in the US who remember, their grandmothers who just had these really natural and easy cures, and twice a year they'd all stand up and they'd get a spoon of something to like deworm them and all sorts of different things, during a time when there was very little cancer, very little heart attacks, and none of these autoimmune disorders and things. So it's interesting, isn't it, that when health gets preached in a certain way for many decades, you'd like to think it would get better, and it actually looks like health outcomes have worsened quite considerably. So, I think that's a really valid point, Barry. Does one size fit all? I don't think so. And when,
what do you mean with health treatments?
Well, yeah, and also when a select family or a select route has the control of something that gets disseminated out to so many people.
May I continue?
Not with David Icke. I'd like.
Why
to
not? I've only got one more paragraph.
Okay,
One
go
more
on.
question.
Go on then.
Is that the philosophy of your tour? And I saw him speak actually soon after this, to bring the game plan to people's attention. Yes, he says, I suppose one thing I'm trying to do in the Robots Rebellion is to fuse the spiritual with the streetwise. What's happening is that some people are coming from the streetwise point of view and they're being hit with all the spiritual explanations for it. Other people are coming from vice versa, from the spiritual and being hit with the streetwise, which has happened within me. The suppression of spiritual knowledge is fundamental to the game plan. It's no accident we have a world that offers a choice between some judgmental God who judges our life on earth, or alternative that we are accidents in evolution with no past and no future and no worth. When people begin to realize that on the level of their consciousness, that tomorrow is the first day of the rest of their eternity, and that we are all aspects of the same whole, and we are infinite potential for all great things in life, then people are far less easy to control. It lifted up there, didn't it?
Yeah.
A transcription and tape of this entire Vibes interview with David Icke is available. Please phone the office for details. It's long gone now. I don't have a tape or the interview.
And how did you like share it with
It went
people?
to a library somewhere. It is in an envelope in a library somewhere that got
In Sheffield.
donated from one place to another. Yeah, and this is all I've got left of it now.
Yeah.
And there's we can save it for another part then. But there's what David Icke is telling us in that little panel.
Yeah.
There, which we could do another time.
I mean, what I'm more interested about, I mean, you know, we don't really want to go down this whole route. Obviously, you know, people are, you know, this isn't a place for us to share what's going on and say this is how it is and blah 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 blah. Because I think we want more discussion, don't we? And we want.
I just wanted a bit of kudos for interviewing David Icke 30 years ago. That's it, basically.
But I mean, you know, aren't we here just to have a light-hearted conversation?
Yeah, for sure,
and to help people feel kind of more positive about what's going on Planet Shit Show.
Yeah.
But suffice to say, if you are curious and this does whet your appetite a little bit, and if any of this is news to you and you're thinking, well, hang on a second, how could he have known all of this 30 years ago? Then just drop me a line, because I will very happily recommend a few places where you can find out more of this information. But I think we should relax now for a gong break. One sec.
Ooh.
That feels good, because I need, it's like you need an amuse-bouche, don't you? You need to like palate cleanse.
I definitely need a little tickle of the old root chakra when considering such matters. Yeah, you got to get back in your body, because
it's very easy to get like in your head and to get really wound up about it. And of course, if you go down the route of fear and start panicking, then you know you're not helping yourself. You're not helping your mind-body system.
No, that little flutter of the chakra is actually your sphincter tightening when you get really fearful.
Yeah,
easy to confuse.
Well, you know what? I think over these last few years, whether you have experienced a bout of the old COVID or not, or if you've had vaccines, or if you've not had vaccines, pretty much everyone I've met has sickened in some way. And I think it's because of the pressure and the weight, the heaviness of what's been going on.
As in the agenda itself has had a harrowing effect on people, whether or not whatever part of it you found yourself.
Exactly.
The weight of it has been unbearable.
Whether you've been censored, whether you've been calling for censorship, whether I think people have been pitted against each other. Families have been pitted against each other.
That's such a good point.
Pretty sure me and my cousin will have very similar views about particular medical recommendations. And we may be the only two people in our family that have chosen that kind of route. You know, and you know, my little sister has said that's wrong, and you know, like there's lots of different things going on. You know, it's caused such a separation for people.
Well, it's like, you know what came to mind when you said that? You know, it's not wherever you are and whatever your choices have been in the last 3 years. The problem has been the last 3 years. and
the build up for for the last 30 years, or actually longer than that. You know, and you going back to the 60s, I think.
Yeah, so picture this: you have your living room, and you have two politicians living with you on your sofa, constantly bickering with each other. And sometimes you think, well, he's got a point, And sometimes you think, oh, she's got a point, but they're always at each other, trying to be clever, trying to be right. And one day you realize, and you say, do you know what? Both of you need to get out. I don't care which one of you's right, but I can't stand this constant bickering on my sofa. This is, how did you get in here in the first place? Get out. I don't want this in my life all the time. And that's what I think has happened, isn't it? If you allow it, there is a constant barrage for your sort of lower vibration attention, which does make you fearful and destabilized. And I do it. I have that when I look at news media, Twitter, all of this out there gross stuff that is looks like it's trying to find a solution, but actually the weight of the debate itself is pretty disgusting and harrowing and devastating on people, I would say.
Yeah.
How do you respond to that?
Yeah, so family stuff is great. So we've got quite a few comments here. So Gavin Hughes is saying, lovely
Gav,
show,
so
guys.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for joining us. Owen, it was lovely to see you yesterday. Thank you so much for sending love. Barry's saying, yeah, divide and conquer. You have met my parents. I don't know if that's in relation
the politicians on the sofa, yeah.
Okay. And Gary Austin, ego and pride. Yeah, it's funny because one thing I have noticed is people are doubling down. When all of a sudden they realize there's conflicting information going on in their brain, rather than taking a moment to think it through. So many people are just doubling down and saying, no, this is how it is.
Well, let's take those two on the sofa. So you've delivered the news to them, they've got to go, and they're gathering their things on the sofa. And when you leave the room, say, like, I'll be back in 5 minutes. When I come back, I'm going to give you a lift back to the Houses of Parliament and you should stay there. When you come back, they've been talking to each other and they've said, look, I think we've been rumbled here. The guy knows what's going on. He's upset with our general behavior. He's no longer diverted between either one of us, flip-flopping between left and right and up and down and black and white. He's on to us. So how do we get to stay here? And they would double down, wouldn't they? When you come back, say, okay, get in the car, I'm taking you back to the Houses of Parliament. Say, look, no, we formed a coalition for your benefit because there's something really terrible outside the house and we're going to stay here and tell you how to deal with it. Yeah. And you've got a choice then, haven't you, to say, really? And they say, oh, yeah, it's really awful. And we've been talking about it for years now.
Nicely done.
And we've got the solution that will stop you being hurt or killed. And then you say, okay, sit back down. Okay, yeah, you can stay for a bit longer. Or you can say, don't try that old chestnut. Get in the car. We're going back to Westminster.
Yeah. Quit your messing about.
Yeah.
So we haven't quite turned this around into quite the uplifting hope and heart space that
I don't feel down though, do you? I mean, if I go into my body now, I don't feel. I can talk. I do feel like I'm talking about this in quite a light-hearted way, if that makes sense.
I think one thing to be aware of, or this is something I've learned anyway, is when I was really reacting, which I've done a lot. I've gone to throw things at TVs when Carl was watching the news, and when I felt like, bloody listen to me, don't listen to that stupid box. I would get. But
then what's my choice?
Yeah. So we
listen to you ranting or listen to the TV
exactly,
ranting.
We were like the proverbial people on the sofa. But it doesn't do our health any good. And like David Icke says, he said something about health options. If people are confused, there's nothing that can happen.
They're easily controllable, aren't they?
Yeah, they're easily controllable. So what I'm going to say is let us know what you'd like us to talk about in the next episode or the next few. We're deliberately keeping it to half an hour so that we can do this. We can dive in most days and do it. If we try to do longer than that, the chances are we're going to fail. So let us know what you'd like us to talk about and we'll have these discussions.
And we've been given beautiful words to end on here.
Yeah.
If in doubt, get yourself a field. Spot on. Telly is evil. Barry, it's been a pleasure to meet you.
Come over. We live in Portugal now.
Very welcome to the show and Portugal anytime.
Come and stay.
And look, I think the last word needs to go to Colleen, doesn't it?
Yeah.
With the name Murphy as well. We're getting close to St. Patrick's Day here.
Yeah,
I don't want to make any assumptions, but that's a fair one, isn't it? That
Colleen Murphy sounds pretty Irish.
Have some Irish connections there.
But we do know she's like coming from the US tonight, don't we?
Yeah, so. And I imagine having a great time at St. Patrick's Day. Love is more powerful, and in the end, will win. Thank you, Colleen, for that. Thanks everyone for tuning in tonight.
Thank you so much. And stay in
And
contact.
before you go,
Yeah, go
you
on.
wonderful awakened 7 people, subscribe here and make sure you hit the notification button because it messes with the algorithms in a really good way. Love you.
Thanks. Ciao, ciao.